Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome into the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X _ Jonathan Smith, follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app or 1430 AM if you're cruising around the Indianapolis area. Still riding high off of that Indianapolis Colts win on Sunday over the Miami Dolphins, 33-8. Everything was clicking. The defense was forcing turnovers, 3 and outs. The offense scored every time they touched the football. Very impressive week 1 win from the Colts, even if it was against a bad team in the Miami Dolphins. So this Indianapolis Colts team coming into the season had a lot of question marks. There were a lot of them. I went over them time and time again on this show. The linebackers, the we like our guys position group of the season, one where Chris Ballard laid it out for you. He's like, hey, we developed 7th round pick Zaire Franklin. We developed 5th round pick EJ Speed. We think that we can do it again. He told us, hey, we like our guys at that position. Tanner Bortolini was a question mark. After, I feel like the more he played last year, the worse he got. Matt Goncalves moved him from tackle to guard, right? Like that was a question mark. Can Goncalves make that transition? The backup defensive lineman, the lack of depth along that part of the line was a question mark. The quarterback play, question mark. The depth in the secondary after all of the injuries, question mark, right? Like there was a fair amount of concern. And I think one of the really impressive things from the Colts win was every one of those players / position groups played really well in that game. Played really well. I was pleasantly surprised by how the linebackers performed in that game. Like Joe Bacci played really well, right? Like that's a guy who previously played in, Cincinnati, and he was a backup. Like he didn't get to play all the time. He comes here, wins the starting job to replace EJ Speed, who didn't play very well for Houston. I don't know if you watched the Texans play the Rams on Sunday after the Colts game. I did. Was not impressed with EJ Speed. Very glad that he's not here anymore. But Joe Bacci, maybe it's Bacci, he comes over, first game as a starter, 6 tackles, right? Was just where he was supposed to be at all times. Zaire Franklin, I thought he played well. I thought he tackled well. He only had 4 tackles on the day. Really weird tackling day for the Colts. Like there wasn't one guy who kind of reigned above everybody else in terms of the number of tackles that he had, like last year. Last year, if you went through the Colts box score, you would see Zaire Franklin and EJ Speed each with like 10 tackles apiece. And then you'd see Nick Cross with like 9, and then everyone else would have like 5 or less. That is not what happened on Sunday. Very even, very spread out. 3 guys with 6 led the way, and then obviously a lot of 5, 4s, 3s, 2s, and 1s. Okay, so Zaire Franklin played well, I thought. Right, they both Bacci and Franklin made tackles. One of the things that I was very intrigued to see with the Colts linebacker play on not only on Sunday, but this is going to continue to be something that I monitor throughout the season, is how do they cover? How do they cover? Because last year, cover 3, matching zone, and that's, obviously linebackers still had to cover in the Gus Bradley system, but under Lou Anarumo, like he's going to ask the linebackers to play man-to-man and to cover running backs, running it out of the backfield and to cover tight ends and those things. And to Joe Bacci and Zaire Franklin's credit, they were not issues in pass coverage. There wasn't a moment where I was like, oh no, man, like are they just going to pick on Zaire Franklin and Joe Bacci in pass coverage all day? Didn't have that moment once. So very impressive day from the linebackers, the we like our guys position group of the year. And I hope that they continue to play well. I hope that they continue to tackle well. That's really the biggest thing. Like, those guys have to tackle well in space because Lou Anarumo plays a lot of nickel, right? So if it's two linebackers, like, both of them have to make, not every tackle, but a lot of them, especially against teams that look to run the football. The Dolphins, I think, wanted to try to run the football against the Colts, but when you go down 17-0 in the first half, all of a sudden, like, you don't get to run the football as much as you want to. And when the Dolphins ran the ball, they found success. 12 carries for 78 yards. That is a little concerning. Like, we'll kind of see how that, we'll see if that continues to be an issue as the year goes on, but we'll see this. So I'm a little cautious of the linebackers, but with that being said, I did think that they both played well on Sunday. Another pair of guys that I was concerned about coming into the season that pleasantly surprised me in just the biggest way. Matt Goncalves and Tanner Bortolini. Coming into the year, I felt pretty good about 3 of the 5 spots on the Colts offensive line. Braden Smith, been around for a bit. When he plays, he's been very reliable at right tackle. Quentin Nelson's probably going to be a Hall of Famer as an offensive guard on a team that has been consistently bad while he's been there, right? So Quentin Nelson, I don't think anyone ever has any sort of doubt that he's going to play well. And then you have Bernard Raymond, who the Colts extended for 4 years, $100 million in the offseason. Like, he is your franchise left tackle for the Colts for the foreseeable future. So very easy to feel good about all 3 of those players. Now, there were questions about Tanner Bortolini being the full-time starting center. Colts move off of Ryan Kelly. Ryan Kelly now playing for the Vikings. He got hurt last night, which is not a surprise. So Tanner Bortolini, 4th-round pick last year out of Wisconsin. He's the new guy at center. And then you have Matt Goncalves moving from right tackle to right guard. And with Bortolini, last year, he comes in, and the more he played, the less I liked him. It felt like the more he played, the worse he got. And, I don't think that's an uncommon thing for a rookie. And so I'm very intrigued to kind of see if he can maintain the high level of play that he had on Sunday. Matt Goncalves was more concerning moving from right tackle to right guard, just because it's a position that the guy had never really played before. He was a left tackle at Pitt before he was drafted in the 3rd round last year. And then, Will Fries leaves. He heads up to Minnesota. They look good last night. And now the Colts are like, we don't have a right guard. Matt Goncalves, let's go. So they throw him in there. And look, the Colts can say whatever they want, but there's no way that they weren't concerned about Matt Goncalves coming into the season. Why else would they have had him play in the Colts' 3rd and final preseason game? He was the only starter that played in that game. And then, so they come out week 1, and I talked about it on Friday or on Thursday of last week. There was real concern for them, as there should have been, because Tanner Bortolini got worse as the year went on last year, and Matt Goncalves, he never played. And they're lining up across from a dude named Zach Sealer, who's a really good defensive tackle in the NFL. Okay, the front 4 for the Miami Dolphins has a lot of talent between Phillips and Chubb and Sealer. And that was the guy that Goncalves and Bortolini had to block. And that guy's, like I said, a really good defensive tackle. And they both did more than hold their own. More than hold their own, especially in pass protection. Daniel Jones only sacked once for 10 yards for a 10-yard loss. I was very pleasantly surprised by how they both played. And if they can continue to play at that level, it's going to be really easy to like Daniel Jones. It's going to be really easy to like him because time is the best thing that you can give a quarterback, especially when you have receivers and a tight end at the level that the Indianapolis Colts do. If you give Daniel Jones 3 seconds to throw, Alec Pierce or A.D. Mitchell or Josh Downs or Michael Pittman or Tyler Warren eventually are going to get open. If you give Daniel Jones enough time, and I thought that the best thing that we saw from Daniel Jones in that game on Sunday was his decision-making. I just thought that he consistently made the right choice, whether it was taking the check down, right? Jonathan Taylor out there on the flat, whether it was, finding Josh Downs pretty quickly off the line of scrimmage, or pushing the ball deep whenever there was an opportunity to do it. His decision-making was so good. And a large part of that is it's easy to make decisions when you're not running for your life. And that comes back to this offensive line: Braden Smith, Matt Goncalves, Tanner Bortolini, Quentin Nelson, and Bernard Raymond, all 5 doing their jobs at a really high level. Whenever Chris Ballard is your general manager, you just kind of expect for the offensive line to be good. And to his credit, week 1 against a talented Miami Dolphins front, that offensive line looked really good. And what's really impressive about it is there's only 1 first-round pick on that offensive line. Bernard Raymond was a 3rd-round pick. Quentin Nelson, obviously, the 1st-round pick. Tanner Bortolini was a 4th-round pick. Matt Goncalves, 3rd-round pick. Braden Smith, 2nd-round pick. The fact that Chris Ballard has been able to put together a really good offensive line without having to use premier picks, it's really impressive. Like, they looked better than the Tennessee Titans offensive line, an offensive line in which they've invested 2 high first-round picks in 2 of the last 3 years, a center that they took in the 3rd round, and they went out and they got a left tackle and a left guard in free agency. And then you've got Ballard, who's just like, no, I'm going to draft them all, and we're not going to use first-round picks on most of them, and we're still going to be really good. That is a testament to Ballard and his drafting of the offensive line. It's also a testament to the offensive line coach here in Indianapolis. And that is, I think, the most important thing for the Colts going forward. That offensive line has to continue to be as good as they were in that game. Because if you give Daniel Jones time, he's going to play really well. Okay, the offensive line in New York that Daniel Jones played behind very rarely gave him time like the Colts offensive line did on Sunday. Now, it's only 1 game. I am definitely not one to overreact. Very intrigued to see how Matt Goncalves and Tanner Bortolini do this upcoming week when the Colts play the Broncos, because that Broncos defense, it's nasty. It is. Like, if the Broncos have the best defense in the NFL this year, that will surprise no one. It'll surprise no one. Like, there's just so many really good players on that line. Zach Allen is an excellent pass rusher. Okay, the Broncos led the NFL in sacks last year. Nick Bonito had 13.5 sacks last year. Right, like that dude can really play. All right, John Franklin Myers, good player. DJ Jones at nose tackle, good player. All right, and so the Broncos are going to be able to do something that the Dolphins couldn't, and that's match coverage with pass rush. Okay, the Dolphins couldn't cover me on Sunday. The Broncos can absolutely cover between Surtain and Hufanga and Riley Moss. Like, that's a really good secondary paired with a really good front 4 who can get after you pretty much whenever they want to. So, very impressed by the offensive line in week 1, especially Bortolini and Matt Goncalves. They've got another really big test coming up this week, playing against a Denver Bronco defense that projects as one of, if not the best defense in the NFL. Very excited to talk to Zach Hicks about how Bortolini and Goncalves played. I know he was really impressed by them. Zach Hicks is going to join the show at 11. And another area of concern for the Colts was the defensive line depth. Okay, like, how were they going to hold up, when Latu and DeForest Buckner and Kwity Paye were out of the game? And to their credit, they held up very nicely. very nicely. My thoughts on the Colts backup defensive line in 4 minutes.
If it's in today's sports world, it's here. The real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on X _ Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on that Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. And, of course, 14:30 a.m. if you're driving around the Indianapolis area on a beautiful, beautiful day. Very sunny outside. We love that. Not too hot, not too cold. It's great. It's great. Almost as great as the Colts win on Sunday over the Miami Dolphins. Every question that I had about the Colts coming into the season was answered in a very positive manner. Linebackers played great. The, combination of Tanner Bortolini and Matt Goncalves at center and right guard played really well. The backup defensive lineman for the Colts played well. It's hard not to like the 4 starting defensive linemen for the Indianapolis Colts. Kwity Paye, he's as solid as they come. Going to get you somewhere between 8 and 9 sacks a year, and he's going to be a good run defender. Grover Stewart, right there in the middle, does a really good job of, stopping the run. DeForest Buckner, more of a pass rushing defensive tackle who does a good job in the run game as well. And then, of course, Laiatu Latu, number 15 overall pick in the NFL draft last year, a guy who's hopefully going to be a guy who can really go and get it done for them, this year. Didn't have a sack in the game, but he did have a pick, which, I'll take an interception over a sack any day of the week. That's just kind of how I roll, So the question wasn't about them. The question was, how do the guys behind them perform? Tyquan Lewis, 30 years old, coming off of elbow surgery. How was he going to look? And, Tyquan Lewis is just a laundry list of injuries throughout his career. Eric Johnson, the second, backing up Grover Stewart. How was he going to look? Wasn't great. Wasn't terrible. Behind Buckner, you got, Neville Gallimore and Adetomiwa Adebawore. Those guys as well. More pass rushing defensive tackles as opposed to guys who can put their hand in the dirt and clog the run. And then you got Samson Ebukam behind Laiatu Latu. Guy who's 30 years old. Last time we saw him, he was really good, 9.5 sacks for the Colts, but he's coming off of this Achilles injury. Like, how is he going to look? He hadn't played football in, 15 months or whatever it was. He tore it before the year even started last year. Right? So the question wasn't how good is the Colts defensive line going to be? Because on paper, starting the starters, really good. It's the backups. And the depth was good on Sunday. Samson Ebukam had a sack. I felt like when Tyquan Lewis was on the field, he was consistently applying pressure to Tua. I didn't notice when Grover Stewart or DeForest Buckner were out of the game, so that means that Adebawore and Eric Johnson and Neville Gallimore all did their jobs. Then again, Miami didn't really run the football very much, so, still not going to come to a, I like the depth, conclusion yet, but I want to see how the backups kind of hold up against the run because it feels like such a pass rush heavy unit. And look, if the Colts go up 17-0 in the first half in every game that they play, then the backups are going to continue to look fine because all those guys are really guys who get after the quarterback. But when they're down and it's the fourth quarter and the other team's trying to run out the clock and DeForest Buckner or Grover Stewart need a breather, how are they going to look in those spots? So that's still the question that I have. But in terms of the backup defensive line's ability to rush the passer and generate some pressure, I've got no questions about it whatsoever. The question still remains around the run game. How does that look? Dolphins didn't run the football very much, but when they did find a fairly decent amount of success. Can't wait to talk to Zach Hicks about that in about 35 minutes. There is one concerning thing, though, about the defensive line from Sunday, and it's not a performance thing. JT Tuimoloau was the Colts' second-round pick this year. Took him, I think, 45th overall. He didn't play. He didn't play a single snap. The Colts' second-round pick in a blowout win, 33-8, couldn't get on the field. That's kind of concerning. I don't need to harp on the depth any more than I already have, but JT Tuimoloau needs to be a guy who can play. I'm kind of surprised that he didn't play at all in that game, just considering how good he was in the preseason. Seemed like they really liked him, and they kept running him out there. And I felt like whenever he was on the field, you knew that he was on the field. And he couldn't play a snap, and a 33-8 win over a bad team. Maybe I don't think that there's an injury. Like, we haven't heard about that at all, at least not from the Colts or anyone associated with them. But like that's a guy who's going to have to play snaps at some point during the season, I would think, because I just find it very hard to believe that Buckner and Latu and Kwity Paye and Grover Stewart are going to stay healthy all year. And one of the nice things about JT Tuimoloau is you can move him inside if you need to. So I'm kind of concerned about that. Maybe, he plays this next week against the Broncos, and it's purely a matchup kind of thing, right? And for some reason, they didn't like Tuimoloau matched up against the Dolphins' offensive line, which if they don't like that, that's concerning because the Dolphins' offensive line is not very good. But another thing to monitor as the year progresses, do they eventually rotate JT Tuimoloau into the rotation? Or is he just going to be a healthy scratch all year? I have to credit Chris Ballard, not for drafting JT Tuimoloau. Not a good start for him being a healthy scratch in your first game as a second-round pick. Is this potentially going to be another failed edge rush draft by Chris Ballard? Potentially. We'll see. It's one game. I'm not going to jump to any conclusions. To Chris Ballard's credit, he went out and signed Xavier Howard. And I didn't like the decision because Xavier Howard had a gap year last year, didn't play anywhere. And he had some off-the-field issues, last year. And that's probably part of why teams didn't want to go out and bring him in. But like a bad Miami Dolphins secondary was like, we're good. We don't want you. And I think that teams tell you things when they make moves. Like when the Dolphins let go of Xavier Howard, it's like, oh, yeah, we just don't think you're very good anymore because he had some off-the-field issues during his time in Miami. And then last year, no one decides to pick him up, which tells me that his talent level, his ability to play football did not exceed the headache that he was last year. This year, the Colts become desperate. They're looking around. It's like, oh, geez. Everyone is hurt. Everyone is hurt. We need literally anybody. So they calls it Xavier Howard, and they bring him in. And I didn't really know what we were going to get from Howard, throughout the course of the season. And he was really good week one. He was every bit as good as Charvarius Ward was. When they brought him in, it felt kind of desperate, but, because of all the injuries, they had to do it. And to Chris Ballard's credit, seems like he called the right guy. Yeah, he had an awesome game against his former team. Awesome game. If you look at Tua's passing chart, he didn't throw Xavier Howard's way at all. Every pass that Tua threw was to the other side of the field, to the right side of the field, towards Charvarius Ward, which makes me feel good. Please throw the football that guy's way because he is the best corner on this Colts team. I don't think there's a higher compliment for a corner than the compliment that Tua paid Xavier Howard during that game on Sunday. So, Jonathan, what compliment? Oh, he just didn't throw it his way. Literally the whole game. Just an incredibly impressive performance from a guy who hasn't played football in over a year. And on top of it, he helped generate a turnover. He picked up that fumble that Kenny Moore forced. He was just awesome. So much better than advertised. And then you got Charvarius Ward, who was as good as advertised. Just, in lockstep with Jalen Waddle or Tyreek Hill, whoever the Colts had him defending. Part of why Tua had to hold the ball wasn't just because of all the weird coverages and things that Lou Anarumo showed pre-snap, but he also had to hold the football because the coverage on the back end was so good. It just was. And it was an absolute blast to watch a Colts defense look like an NFL defense and not allow completions and then just be like, we're going to rally to tackle and then miss all the tackles. No. The Colts are just like, we're just not going to let you catch the football. They didn't give up any explosive plays. Very impressive day from the Colts defense, but Xavier Howard specifically was awesome. And then they kind of helped pave the way for Daniel Jones to have, one of the best days that he's had in quite some time. 22 of 29, 272 yards, 3 total touchdowns. He just did a great job of keeping the Colts on schedule. And that is going to be just the biggest theme of the year for this Colts offense. Can they stay on schedule? Can Daniel Jones consistently get them to 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, where they have the option to run the football, throw the football, or just do play action? It is the most important thing for the Colts offense this year in terms of them finding success. I don't know if you watched the game last night, Vikings and Bears. Everyone, I'm sure, is going to crap all over Caleb Williams today. I thought he played really well. But if you watched that game, then you would have noticed that on first down, Caleb Williams he'd make a good play. He just he would. And then you look up and it'd be 2nd and 2. And then the Bears would commit a penalty. And you go from 2nd and 2 to 2nd and 7. And so now it's 2nd and long, and you kind of have to throw the football, and then you do, and then it's incomplete, and all of a sudden it's 3rd and 7. I thought that penalties consistently set the Bears back last night. The number of times that they got into 1st and 15 or 1st and 20 because there was a hold, it was just too many. And ultimately, all of those penalties, 12 penalties for 127 yards, ended up really kind of hurting the Bears. For the Colts, I think a large part of why they had success was because they stayed out of that. There was never a 1st and 15. There was never a 1st and 20 called back because there was a hold. Okay, the Colts committed 4 penalties for 45 yards against the Dolphins. By the way, very clean game. Dolphins only had three penalties for 15 yards. And when you don't commit penalties and you have a quarterback in Daniel Jones who's just going to make the right play, find Jonathan Taylor in the flat if no one's open, hit Tyler Warren in the middle of the field if that's where the play is designed to go. If no one's open, he can scramble and pick up 5 or 6 yards. If that's your quarterback and you don't commit penalties and you're able to just stay on schedule, the number of long drives that the Colts had really kind of play into this, 9 plays for a field goal, 14 plays for a touchdown, 17 plays for a field goal, 15 plays for a touchdown. When you have drives like that, I think that it speaks to 2 things. One, it speaks to your quarterback, Daniel Jones, making the right decision consistently. And it also speaks to your team not getting in their own way, not committing a penalty, not giving up a sack. And those are the things that are going to allow the Colts to win football games this year. They can't get in their own way. Because if it's consistently 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, I don't feel good about the Colts converting that. But if it's consistently 3rd and 3, like it was on Sunday, it's hard not to like Daniel Jones in those spots. So he played really well. The decision-making was really good. The ability to just keep the offense on schedule was why they scored as many points as they did. That's a Daniel Jones thing. That's an offensive line thing, giving him time, and a team thing as a whole, just not committing dumb penalties. It's also a Tyler Warren thing. That dude's awesome. And I don't think that his week 1 performance, his NFL debut, can really be discussed enough. If you watched the Shane Steichen press conference yesterday, he did about 10 minutes. And I think he talked about Tyler Warren for more than half of that time. Just a really impressive day from the rookie, making plays after the catch, just kind of finding a way to consistently get open. And it was just a really fun day watching the Colts play. I hope that it continues, because when the Colts are good, it just makes everything else more fun. As I said yesterday, I want to look forward to watching the Colts play football. And as of right now, I'm 1,000% in that place. I cannot wait to watch the Colts play the Broncos on Sunday because I think we're going to get an even better idea of how good this team is. And Tyler Warren is obviously going to play a huge role in that. And there's one specific thing about Tyler Warren's game that has to be good this year. And I'll tell you what that is in 4 minutes.
Dan Dockage at noon. The real Jonathan Smith Show. Now, this is Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X __ Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. And, of course, 14:30 a.m. if you're driving around the Indianapolis area. Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts is set to join the show coming up here in about 20 minutes. And we're going to talk Colts, obviously. Big win over the Dolphins, 33-8. Just, Mike McDaniel, get ready to be the first coach in the NFL fired. It's certainly not going to be our guy Shane Steichen, right, who had it rolling. And whenever Shane Steichen does a press conference, he is just as monotone and as boring as possible. Gives away as little information as possible. And then someone will ask him a question about Tyler Warren. And the guy just can't help but smile. There is not a bigger Tyler Warren fan than Shane Steichen. The way that he just lightens up every time he's asked a question about Tyler Warren. It's really kind of funny to watch. And for Tyler Warren, it's not just the pass catching, right? Obviously, that's a really important thing. That's where we're going to see him the most. A guy who can just own the middle of the field. It's also about the blocking. That is such an important aspect for Tyler Warren this season. Max Toscano is going to join the show tomorrow, and we're going to talk about Tyler Warren and just kind of his debut. Max, really smart guy, coached football at UConn, has a Substack now where he writes about tight ends. So, really smart dude who loves Tyler Warren. So, I read this stat the other day from Ben Solak of ESPN. He went and found this. Raiders tight end Brock Bowers, right? He was the 10th pick last year, I believe, of the Raiders, out of Georgia. Great season last year, led all tight ends in receptions and receiving yards and all those things. So for the Raiders on Sunday, they played the Patriots. Brock Bowers only played 33 snaps on offense. That was only half of the Raiders snaps. And when he was on the field, Chip Kelly called a drop back pass 84% of the time. The Raiders have another really good tight end named Michael Mayer, who played more than Brock Bowers did, 65% of the snaps. And when he was on the field, they threw the football 54% of the time, and they ran it 46% of the time. So when Brock Bowers is in the game, it's pretty obvious what the Raiders are going to do. And I was texting with Max last night, and I was texting him about Colston Loveland, the 10th overall pick that the Bears took this year to play tight end. And, he was, I just kind of asked him, what's the thing for me to watch for? And he was like, look to see how often the Bears put both Cole Kmet and Colston Loveland out there in an attempt to protect Loveland as a blocker. And they did it time and time and time again. And so I was kind of curious to see how Tyler Warren fared when putting his hand in the dirt and blocking. I thought he was really good against the Dolphins, and that is such an important thing. Here is Colts head coach Shane Steichen talking about Tyler Warren's ability to block and how good of a job he did of that on Sunday.
Yeah, I thought he did a really nice job. We had a play there. I want to say, I don't know if it was third quarter, where he got up inside on the linebacker, which created a little crease there. I thought he did some good things. We had some max play action protection stuff that I thought he held up good. I thought he did a real nice job, week one for sure.
Shane Steichen right there talking about Tyler Warren and how he did a real nice job blocking, because that is an important aspect of playing tight end in the NFL, because you don't want to tip your hand. You don't want for, the opposing team's spotter to be sitting up in the booth being like, oh, Tyler Warren's in the game. That means that they're going to throw the football. That's kind of how it was with Kylan Granson last year. You knew that when Kylan Granson was in the game playing tight end that the Colts were probably going to throw the football. Same goes for Will Mallory. Whereas, whether it's Ogletree out there, when it's Ogletree out there, they're probably going to block. But when it's just Tyler Warren, it doesn't need to be a tip of the hand as to what the Colts are going to do. And that's why I would argue that his ability to run block is every bit as, if not more important, than his ability to catch passes, okay? Like, you don't want to tip your hand based on your personnel, okay? He just has to be a feasible run blocker. And I thought that he was on Sunday against the Dolphins. You heard Shane Steichen right there basically say the exact same thing. He doesn't have to be dominant, okay? Like, I would love it if he was George Kittle laughing as he blocks guys to the turf. But he doesn't have to be that. He just has to be feasible, and I do think that the longer that he's in the NFL, the stronger he gets. He'll become a better and better blocking tight end. But I thought he held up well in the run game, and that's hopefully going to continue throughout the season. And I'm just really excited to see his growth as the year goes on. Like, I think we saw a lot of Colts players' peaks on Sunday. I hope that we didn't. But like, I would be surprised if Daniel Jones plays a better game the rest of the year. I would be surprised if the Colts secondary was able to play much better than what it did, right? 2 interceptions, Tua only 14 of 23 passing. So I don't think that the secondary can play much better than that. The Dolphins only ran the football 12 times, so it was kind of tough to get a read on the run defense, but you can tell that Tyler Warren has another level. It didn't feel like we got the full Tyler Warren experience on Sunday, even though he was still really good and very involved in the offense, and I expect for that to continue to be a thing for them going forward. They didn't feature him in the red zone a ton, which was kind of surprising. I kind of figured that he would be the red zone guy, big body, strong, can catch the football, can make contested catches as well. There's some big dudes who can't make contested catches. Not Tyler Warren. He can absolutely do that. So I do expect that to change going forward, and I'm very intrigued to see how they kind of use him in the red zone. And as we know, Shane Steichen wants to move Tyler Warren around as much as he can throughout the season. I thought another important aspect of the Colts game against the Dolphins that is not being discussed as much as it could be, no injuries. Colts got out of that game incredibly clean. Javarius Ward did show up to the facility yesterday with some concussion symptoms, so he is in concussion protocol. But that's such a big win for them because the best team in the NFL doesn't win, the healthiest team does. That's just a reality. It's a large part of why the Eagles cruised to a Super Bowl last year. When you start the playoffs with, all 22 of your starters from week 1 starting, that's a major advantage in such a physical sport. And if you're not healthy, it just becomes so much tougher to win games, especially when your depth is questionable like the Colts is. So, as I said, Javarius Ward, he's in concussion protocol. Hopefully, though, he can clear that before Sunday because they're going to need him for that game against the Broncos. And it's really weird coming into this game because people are down on the Broncos right now because they played a bad game against the Titans. And I get it. The Titans aren't a great team. They weren't very good last year. But I'm just telling you, like, the Colts are going to have their hands full with Denver because Bo Nix looked really good last year. Courtland Sutton's a good wide receiver. They've got other weapons. And if the Broncos are able to run the football, then good luck, Indy. So I still question some of the depth of the Colts. And so the health is such a big deal because like small doses of backups is fine. Like you're going to have that, like Tyquan Lewis and Samson Ebukam, just to use the defensive line as an example. Like if those guys are playing on third downs, great. That's awesome. Don't mind that. But if either one of them is playing, 80% of the snaps, that's obviously a very different story. And no one, I think, is going to disagree whenever I say that the Colts are thin at linebacker and in the secondary just because of all the injuries that have already happened on the back end. So just a really good thing that the Colts got out of week 1 as clean as they did. Other teams didn't. Like the Vikings had 2 injuries last night. Drake London for the Falcons got hurt. Like you can just kind of work your way through the list, and you can just kind of realize how fortunate the Colts were. Zach Hicks joining the show here in about 10 minutes. I haven't talked any college football, and it's 11 o'clock, almost 11 o'clock on a Tuesday. It just really feels like a crime. I really need for Indiana to play Illinois soon. That way I can kind of get all of my college football love out for right now, just because I love the sport. Stayed up, watched OU and Michigan. That Michigan quarterback, the Bryce Underwood kid, that dude's going to be really good. That dude, he looks awesome. He just does. But speaking of Michigan and OU, we had a matchup last night between former Michigan and former Oklahoma quarterbacks, Caleb Williams and J.J. McCarthy. And I'm just so intrigued to kind of see how people react to that game last night, because the Bears come out and they just look awesome. I mean, like you couldn't have really asked for much more from the Bears. They come out, they're up, 10-0. It's 10-3. They give up a long return. Special teams, very important. They give up this long return. And then, J.J. McCarthy makes his first good throw of the half to Justin Jefferson. They get into field goal range, and you go into halftime, and it's 10-6. And the game felt weird because it felt like the Bears were the better team. It felt like they were in control of the game. And then the second half started, and the penalties just piled up for the Bears. Everyone's going to talk about, Caleb Williams and, the choke job and all these things. But walking out of that game, there were just 2 things that I thought really jumped out to me. One, J.J. McCarthy's a gamer, man. Like, I don't know how good he's going to be. I don't know what his ceiling is or anything like that. But I do know that he's a gamer. He's got something. I don't know what it is. When you look at his numbers, like they're not great. 13-20, 2 touchdowns, only with a bad pick 6 that he threw. But I mean, aside from that, like the dude just, I don't know. Like I didn't sit there and say wow very often, but when the Vikings needed it, you could see him figure it out. And that's what the best quarterbacks in the NFL do. And for the Bears, I did think that I thought Caleb Williams looked really good. 21-35 for 210 yards, a touchdown, and no picks. He was only sacked twice. That's kind of that is the biggest thing for him, is just avoiding those negative plays. And I thought he did a really good job of that last night. The issue is the 12 penalties for 127 yards. If the Bears erase that, they don't. I feel like they false started like 5 times. How you false start at home as often as they did, I don't really know. But just really, I was very impressed by Caleb Williams. I do think that he's gotten better from last year to this year. Now, look, it's one game. I'm not going to sit here and overreact, but if the Bears could just get rid of the false starts, they win that game last night. Because 1st and 15 is significantly harder than 1st and 10. And 2nd and 8 is significantly harder than 2nd and 3. And so on. So I felt like the Bears got in their own way more than the Vikings did, and that's why they ultimately lost the game. And once again, this is one of the things with the Colts. It's been a staple under Shane Steichen. They do not get in their own way. They do a great job of not committing false starts, not committing dumb penalties. Dio Dangbo, so he had like multiple 15-yard penalties last night. No wonder the Colts got rid of him. Roughing the passer, illegal hands to the face, like just not good from Dio Dangbo last night. The Hurricane, as some call him. Like, sure, he won some pass rushing snaps, but like you can't allow for the referee to flag you as many times as he flagged the Bears last night. And like that's one of the things that separates, like a 7 seed from the 8 seed in a conference. Like, you can lose a game because you commit too many penalties. And that's what happened to the Bears last night. That's one of the things with the Colts this year. I don't think that they're going to lose a game because they committed too many penalties. To Shane Steichen's credit, I think his teams are a little too disciplined and well prepared for that. Speaking of Shane Steichen, Zach Hicks and I will be talking about him coming up at 11 o'clock. It's going to be great. You know, he's fired up after that 33-8 Colts drubbing over the Dolphins. Zach Hicks joins me in 4 minutes.
do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Hour number 2 here on the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe watching on X, __ Jonathan Smith, to follow me there and watch the show there. And while you're on X, the everything app, you should also follow our guy. He's our guy at this point. Our guy, Zach Hicks, at Zach Hicks2, who joins the show now. What's going on, Zach? How are you?
Doing good, man. Victory week, feeling great. I mean, nothing beats a win, especially a week 1 win. I've never seen one in my time covering Indy, so I'm just kind of enjoying the experience right now. But yeah, it feels great. Biggest point differential for the Colts in week 1 in the win. So I don't care who they played. They won big. So I'm pumped right now.
Yeah, they did what good teams do. They beat a bad team badly. Like that's kind of what you want to see. And I opened my show yesterday saying that I think that was the most complete win we've seen from the Colts under Shane Steichen. Everything was clicking. So I'll ask you, do you think that was just the most complete game we've seen this Colts team play under Steichen?
Yeah, I think the only other debatable game would be that Steelers win back in December of 2023, where they won 31-13, and I think Taylor even missed, or I think Taylor missed the game, and Zach Moss got injured in the first quarter. So that was the Tyler Goodson and Trey Sermon just running all over them game. That was a pretty complete performance from offense and defense, but I think the stipulation with that one, I think Mason Rudolph or
Trubisky,
one of those backup.
Yeah.
I think Trubisky.
Yeah.
That's who it was.
I went back.
So, yeah,
I went back and I was like, I need to make sure that this statement is correct. So I went back and I looked at that game and I was like, it could be that one, but I would say it's this one just because beating Tua, even though he wasn't very good, much bigger deal than beating Mitch Trubisky.
Right. No, I agree with you. I think when we put that context together, especially, again, also the week 1, everything in terms of the discussion leading into this game from, people ranking the Colts as the worst team in football, having probably top 5 odds to be the number 1 overall pick, according to a lot of people, to come out here and win this game, I think it just speaks volumes to this team. And like you said, it was a complete game. I mean, if we really had to put positives and negatives on every single player, you maybe have 3 or 4 guys who struggled out of the 46 who were dressed on Sunday. I mean, you can't get a better performance than that from your team. So, yeah, I would agree with you. I think this is the most complete, just dominant game that we've seen from the Colts under Shane Steichen. And honestly, I'd go as far to say maybe under Chris Ballard, outside of maybe there was that shutout I think they had over the Cowboys in 2018 with Andrew Luck, but I can't think of many other performances as dominant as this one with Chris Ballard's tenure.
Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts, talking about the Colts win over the Dolphins. As you said, a lot of positives. I want to very quickly move past the 2 negative things. One, we didn't see any JT Tuimoloau. Is it concerning that they couldn't play him for a snap in a dominant win?
Yeah, I think there was slight concern with that because they have him as the 5th defensive end right now, and they clearly like their guys ahead of him. They're more veteran players that they feel are just more ready to go right now. So the way to make him inactive, I guess, came down to either him or Adetomiwa Adebawore, and they ultimately decided to go with Adetomiwa for this showing. But yeah, it's a bit concerning when you have a 2nd-round pick miss a game for being a healthy scratch. But we'll see how the season goes. There's still plenty of time for him to get on the field. I mean, there are plenty of 2nd-round picks that get scratched early in seasons and then ramp it up later in the year. But yeah, you want to see a little bit more out of that high pick. So hopefully he can get out there in this next week or the week after and make an impact. But it shows that currently right now he is the kind of the last defensive end on the roster, and he's got to work his way up past guys like Tyquan Lewis and Samson Ebukam if he wants to make an impact this year.
Agreed. Look, we'll see him at some point because someone's going to get hurt. I just want him to look good whenever we do see him. And then the other thing, this is a me thing, Zach, and people got mad at me when I said this yesterday, but I don't want to overreact to anything. And I was talking to my boss about this yesterday, and I was going to use this example on the air, but I'm not a parent, so I felt kind of weird doing it. But I don't think that parenting is when your kids have like straight A's and like life is really good and they're listening to you. I think parenting is when your like 16-year-old daughter gets her heart broken and you have to go like sit with her and have like a hard conversation, or you've got like a son who's not going to class. Like, I feel like that's parenting. And I attribute that to Daniel Jones. Like, I don't think that quarterbacking in the NFL is when guys are running wide open and your defense forces three turnovers. Because if we graded guys off of that, then we would give every quarterback an A+ in the NFL. I think figuring out who's really got it and who doesn't happens when like your starting offensive tackle is hurt and you're kind of running for your life a little bit and you can't really run the football. It's the guys who can win in spots like that we really like. And so while Daniel Jones was good on Sunday, I feel like the reaction's a bit much. What do you kind of make of all that?
Yeah, I agree to a degree, and I don't want to go too far as to say like Colts have their franchise guy, like sign him already right now going forward, because there's still 16 more games to be played this season. It was a really positive first step for him, and I'm sure later in the show we'll go into like why he really impressed me. But like you said, quarterbacking is not always about when there's sunshine and rainbows. It's also when your back's up against the wall, you have to go make a play, 2-minute drill, got have it moments on 3rd and long. Like, that's really what quarterbacking comes down to. So we'll get a chance to see that from Daniel Jones these next 2 weeks as they play the Denver Broncos and the Tennessee Titans, who are 2 of the best pass defenses in football. I mean, even if you think that Tennessee Titans might be a little bit of a mirage as a team, like, their pass defense is pretty legit, and then the Broncos have had one of the best pass defenses the last couple of years in the NFL. So if you weren't sold on Jones this past week, we get a pretty good reality test these next 2 weeks to see exactly what kind of quarterback he's going to be this year. But he started off on the right foot, did a lot of things right this week, did almost everything you could possibly do in a game in a positive manner. And the goal for him is just stack those performances, carry it into these next 2 tough matchups, and come out of September with a winning record. And I think everyone's going to be feeling great.
Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts, talking about the Colts win over the Dolphins. What were the things that Daniel Jones did that impressed you?
Yeah, I think when it came to Daniel Jones coming to this game, I had an expectation for the offense that they were going to be very play action, very RPO heavy. And that really suited a quarterback like Daniel Jones because it lets you just get your mechanics lined up immediately after the play fake, find your 1 to 2 targets, and then you're just reading one defender. And whatever that one defender does, you're just throwing it to the other guy. So it kind of limits the field for you. It gives you kind of tunnel vision as a quarterback, but not in a negative way. It gives you tunnel vision in a sense where it's like, I have my 2 options. If they're not there, I'm just going to go to my check down. And you're able to work through your progressions a lot quicker. You're able to get lined up in your mechanics a lot better. And it really is well suited for a quarterback like Daniel Jones. And we saw that on Sunday. The Colts came out with a 39% play action rate, which would have led the NFL last year in play action rate if you carried that over the course of a whole season. The Detroit Lions were at 38% last year. So the Colts running play action more than the whole Lions team did last year in a game. So I think we saw that come to fruition. He operated well on those play action and just getting the ball out quick. But my biggest question for Daniel Jones was, can he perform in the true passing situations, the situations where 1st and 10 after a turnover, you want to take a shot down the field. Can he convert? 2nd and 20 backed up in the red zone after a sack on 1st down. Can you deliver and get that 1st down and get the ball in the end zone? 3rd and 10. There was 1 3rd and 10. The Colts did a great job of staying out of 3rd and long, but they had 1 3rd and 10 on Sunday. And what did he do? He drew them off sides and converted the 1st down on a really cool 4 verts concept. So we saw Daniel Jones convert on almost all of those situations. The two of his biggest throws, the deep throw to Pierce and the deep throw to A.D. Mitchell, came immediately after turnovers, where Shane Steichen basically drew up plays where it was, you're not really getting a check down here. It's just a 1-man route concept or a 2-man route concept down the field, and you're going to take a shot. And he was able to deliver on both of those. And then 2nd and 20, like I said, in the red zone, he delivered that touchdown to Michael Pittman Jr. So, I can look at the full body of work in this game and say, like, this wasn't some outwardly fantastic quarterback performance, because 90% of his plays were wide open shots or check downs and just getting the offense moving. But that 10% where he really had to step up and deliver and be like a legit quarterback in terms of delivering great balls down the field and getting this offense over the hump to, be the difference between 17 points and 30 points, he was able to do that in this game. So, we can say we're not sold on Daniel Jones, but I think that 10% that he showed in this game of delivering on those plays really impressed me. And that's what gives me kind of confidence going forward, because again, I feel comfortable saying this offense is going to get the Colts 17 to 20 points a game. I think they can get around that with just how good the offensive line is playing, the weapons they have on offense, the playmakers, or the coaching that they have to get playmakers open. But the difference between 17 to 20 and then 25 to 30 is going to be Daniel Jones delivering on those opportunities. And we saw him do it this past Sunday. So as long as he can string together more games like this than the latter where he's not converting those opportunities, the Colts can have a top 10 to top 15 offense in football. But it's just going to come down to those moments for Jones. But, it's still a long season. I can't say that I'm completely sold on him as a true drop back passer on 3rd and 10. But this was a big step forward, and it gave me a lot of confidence going forward.
Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts, talking about Daniel Jones's performance against the Dolphins. The thing that I was really impressed by from him was really just his ability to stay on schedule, like consistently. Yeah. Like the fact that the Colts had I've got it pulled up, like a 9-play drive for a field goal, a 14-play drive for a touchdown, 17 plays for a field goal, 15 plays for a touchdown. Like that's really hard to do in the NFL, because usually something goes wrong. You make the wrong read on 1st and 10. All of a sudden it's 2nd and 10. You have like a false start. You give up a sack. Just his ability to keep the Colts in like 3rd and 3 was really impressive for me. And that's obviously not just a him thing. It also has to do with this offensive line that I was so much better than I thought that it was. I saw you tweeted out, you were giving out your stars for the game. And I know you gave Tyler Warren 1 and you gave Matt Goncalves 3. What did you like from Bortolini and Goncalves?
Yeah, what a showing from these two. I know last week you were kind of skeptical on the two of them for this season, and rightfully so. I mean, I'm not going to be hard on you for that, because I completely understand being skeptical on these two players. They're young players that, young offensive linemen typically take time in this league to get to where they need to be. I mean, we saw Will Fries. It took him 3 years. It took Bernhard Raimann well over a year of starting before he really came to his own. You can even argue Braden Smith. It took a little over a year. At least I would argue that. So it takes time for these guys to really find their rhythm in the NFL and be the player that they're ultimately going to be. But from what I saw from the two of these guys on Sunday, I am through the roof right now with just my optimism, my confidence in them. I mean, these guys, one, just the communication and just the operationality of it, like just the operationality, like the way that they operated together was just so perfect. Like that they were just in sync on every single play in terms of how to pass things off, how to spot late rushers in the run game, being able to help with connective blocking and getting to the second level. I was so impressed with that aspect, because that's the hardest part to get down as a young offensive lineman, is just that feeling, that trust, that confidence in the guy next to you. And these two guys were operating like one player together. And you could say about all 5 guys on the offensive line. It was like such a connectiveness that you just didn't see from an offensive lineman very often. So they were all operating at a really high level. But Goncalves, I thought, was just fantastic. He had a couple moments one-on-one with Zach Sealer, and he washed him out of the play each time. Really, really impressed. He did lean into like those jump sets, getting aggressive and using his 6'6", 330-pound frame just to wall off defenders. So yeah, it was just a great showing from both these players. Like, I'm not going to say that they were perfect. There were a couple moments that both guys would like to have back, but when you look at like Tanner Bortolini, I thought was just astounding in the run game, and Goncalves was the best pass blocker on the team for the Colts on Sunday. I was really, really impressed with both of them. And I really am excited to see these next couple games, because you got Zach Allen coming up, Jeffrey Simmons coming up, Max Crosby's in a couple weeks as well. That's more of the tackles, but we're going to really get a stress test on this interior these next 2 weeks. And I'm excited to see if they can carry this forward, because this was such a great start for both players.
Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts, talking about the Colts win over the Dolphins. So I'm glad that you brought up the run blocking because I did have a question. So I went back and I did the math. I was surprised at how much the Colts struggled to run the football in the red zone specifically. Like if you remove the 3 quarterback sneaks, they averaged 3 yards per carry when they ran the ball in the red zone. Was that a running backs thing? Was that an offensive line thing? What would you kind of make of their inability to run the football there?
I think it was a couple different factors. One, I think they need to be a little bit more creative with the run game in the red zone, just in terms of maybe just mixing in the option of the read option, like of the potential of Daniel Jones keeping the ball, just to keep that defensive end honest. Maybe spread it out a little bit more so when you're running, it's not into a loaded box. And then when it came to the offensive line, it really wasn't like one guy continually missing block. It was just on every single play, you get pretty much everything blocked up well, but a defender would just hit a landmark that wasn't expected and it threw off a block, or a 3-tech wasn't cut off 100% there and it led to a little bit of mud. And then Jonathan Taylor, like we love Jonathan Taylor for his vision, his patience, and his ability to find creases. But at this point in his career, he's not this like extremely powerful, like explosive runner anymore. So he's not going to get hit for a 2-yard gain and like really plow through and get like 8 yards. You know, he's not really like that kind of runner anymore. So I think he could be a little bit better with just being decisive and getting his foot downhill. But overall, I wasn't terribly concerned with the run game. A lot of these run plays were kind of telegraphed runs that the Colts, especially in like the second half, were just like, look, we're just going to run it. We're going to keep grinding it down on you guys and get out of this game as healthy as possible. So I'm not terribly concerned. They had some good gash plays, and then they had a couple opportunities where I thought, like, again, if one guy just got a little bit better with good, like a couple of them were like Bernhardt Rhyming trying to cut off a backside 3-tech. And like, if he just turns his hips a little bit more, it's probably a bigger run. And he just was struggling to get all the way around that 3-tech. It happens. It's a very, very normal aspect of zone runs. And I think there's a lot of good elements there. Tony Sperano Jr. will get on them in the film room and they'll be able to iron that kind of stuff out. But I didn't see anything like terribly concerning. I didn't see like completely whiff blocks. I didn't see like guys getting blown off the ball. It was just a couple minor details that everyone from the O-line to the running back to, you know, maybe just mixing up the play calling a little bit could have fixed. So I think that when they look at the film of this, they'll see kind of like, yeah, we're close with the run game. I'm not terribly concerned with it at all.
Okay, that's good to know. Last thing on the offense, I just feel like I have to talk about the offense because they scored 33. I'm really excited to talk about the defense, but it's really I know that you watch all of the press conferences from Shane Steichen, and he's just so boring and monotone. But as soon as he gets a question about Tyler Warren, you see like a little smile like creep across his face. Like you could tell he loves that dude. I thought he was really good. Obviously catching the football. I thought he blocked well. On top of it, what'd you make of his debut?
Yeah, if you want to have like any true overreaction to week 1, let the overreaction be that Tyler Warren's going to have a big season as long as he stays healthy, because he was the focal point of the offense in this game plan. A lot of what the Colts wanted to do was to progress the ball up the field by getting the ball to Tyler Warren. They drew up screen plays for him. They had a fullback run for him. And then in the running game, I think this is getting undersold with Warren's game. His run blocking was awesome, like better than I would have even expected in my wildest dreams from him in week 1. And it's not like they used him as like a gimmicky kind of blocker, like, oh, like a little backside cutoff guy or like a fullback getting out on a safety. He was in line quite a bit, and I thought his blocking was just fantastic. Mo Alley-Cox did protect him a little bit like I expected as 12 personnel tight end. He got more of the defensive ends, but they used Warren to get out in space and block linebackers, block safeties, occasionally steal off defensive ends. And his run blocking might have been better than his pass catching in this game. I felt like I was watching George Kittle, like a young George Kittle in a lot of ways in this one, just from the ability to catch, turn, get upfield, and run over some guys. And then you get this major asset in the blocking game. So what a performance from Tyler Warren. I think this was the best rookie performance I've seen from a Colts player in their debut since Quentin Nelson. And you all know Quentin Nelson's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. So I'm not saying that's where Warren is heading, but what a just a debut from Tyler Warren. This was such a good showing from him. And if this is what we're going to get all year, I mean, he's going to be a Pro Bowler this year if he continues this. I know it's only 1 week. We need to temper expectations, but my biggest overreaction is like, this might have just been the missing piece for Shane Steichen, because the way he's using this guy, the way that he's letting him just be a force player in both the run game and the passing game, like, he really might have just been the missing piece for everything Shane Steichen wanted to do.
Which would just be awesome, because I do think that Shane Steichen's a really good coach. So is Lou Anarumo. Zach, your reaction is your overreaction of the week. Is Tyler Warren might be a Pro Bowler. Mine is the Colts might have like a top 10 defense in the NFL. Like, I was just the different coverages, the pulling guys up, and then acting like you're going to blitz, and then bailing, showing no pressure, and then sending a corner or Nick Cross on his one sack. So I was really impressed by just like the schematics of Lou Anarumo. The other thing that really impressed me from this Colts defense, and I want to ask you if there's any correlation here with Lou Anarumo coming over, that's the best I've seen them tackle in the last 2 years. It was really impressive. What would you kind of make of the defense?
Yeah, I think part of it certainly is Anarumo and his staff coming over, just bringing that new energy and new life to the defense. Another part of it is just getting different guys out there on the field. I mean, at linebacker, I think Joe Bacci's a better tackler than an EJ Speed, and I think Xavier Howard's a better tackler than Jalen Jones. Even Jalen Jones had his issues in tackling. Cameron Bynum over Julian Blackman. Tarvarius Ward over Sam Womack is what it was last year. So you certainly have better players out there when it comes to tackling, and I think that was a big emphasis this offseason for the Colts. So I agree that the tackling was much improved. The pass coverage and just the diversity of coverages was the biggest plus in this game. They had a game plan for Tua. They knew exactly how to take away his strengths, and they forced him to hold the ball longer than he typically does hold the ball, even when they were mixing in screens and like swing passes. His average time to throw was like 2.6, and I believe his like career average is like 2.4 or something. So just having him hold the ball a tick longer led to more success for your defense. So, I'm not 100% sold in this defense yet, because I still want to see a little bit more from the pass rush, and the run defense got a little leaky at times, and I want to see that be a bit better, especially, again, if you're going to be nickel all the time, you need to be pristine in your run fits from everybody, all 11 players. But I feel very comfortable in the secondary. I feel very confident in the coverage calls and the ability to tailor game plans for opponents. And I think they're just going to play hard and play physical all year long. So this was a very positive showing from the defense, man. The defense came out to play. They dominated from second one. They forced turnovers. They were disruptive. Everything that you wanted to see from a new style of defense in week one, they showed it on Sunday.
They did. Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts, talking about the Colts' very impressive performance against the Dolphins. Yeah, the turnovers to me was like, that's like, turnovers are always fun when they happen for your team. But for me, like, what was really enjoyable about them, like yesterday I deemed the first interception by Bynum, I called that a Gus Bradley turnover, because Tua had a pretty clean pocket. He just didn't make the throw, and Cam Bynum was there. The other two, like, those are Lou Anarumo turnovers, like blitzing Kenny Moore, where he gets the strip sack, dropping Leatu Latu and Kwity Paye into coverage. That's just like, I saw it happen. I was like, that's weird. And I was like, oh, that's a great idea, apparently. And so it's just like seeing that, because I'm a big believer that turnovers in the NFL, like, it is a luck thing. And very rarely when defensive coordinators talk about forcing turnovers do I say you're actually forcing them. And it felt like the Colts actually forced them on Sunday.
Yeah, they definitely had a game plan. Like, those two turnovers, in particular, the Kenny Moore one, Leatu Latu one, those really came from their planning for this game. I mean, if we look at how Kenny was able to be so free on that blitz, we saw it on the Nick Cross sack as well, where I guess they saw something in the scouting report where they do a late rotation to where they have that nickel or that safety or whoever come off the edge, like right before the snap. The Dolphins won't slow things down and adjust their protection accordingly. So as long as you muddy the picture enough, and then you had that late rotation off the edge, especially off the backside where Tua can't see it. They weren't going to rotate or slide out to protect that backside, and they weren't keeping those running backs in to protect either. So that was purely off of, recognition on game film, and those led to, 2 big plays. One was the forced fumble from Kenny, and then you get to the interception. I said this on Locked On Colts, where Lou Anarumo's whole game plan was, we're going to drop people into the hook zone on every single play. Every play that we call zone, we're going to get multiple guys into the hook zones over the middle. But our goal here is to change up who is going to be that hook zone defender. So it's not just going to be Zaire Franklin every single play. It's going to be Franklin one play, Franklin plus Bocce one play, Franklin plus Latu another play, Franklin plus Cameron Ward plus Bocce, Ward plus Kenny Moore. Like, it's going to be just people all over the defense dropping into that hook zone. So Tua doesn't feel comfortable anticipating those middle of the field throws, because he'll see like the linebacker coming up, not being in that hook zone. And instead of feeling confident that now all of a sudden he can hit that in-breaker, he's wondering who's dropping into that then. He's like, okay, if that linebacker's not there, somebody's there. Now he has to scan for where that late defender is. And we saw it on the Latu interception, where he just didn't account for Latu dropping into coverage, lost track of him, and threw it straight to him. And it would look like an embarrassing interception, but really it just fooled him, because he couldn't anticipate where the hook zone defender was, because he couldn't see the defensive end dropping. So all this to say, I think Anarumo just had a great game plan for how to approach the Dolphins. Good thing having 3 months to prepare for opponent. This is what you can get out of it, where you kind of get everything on film that you need. And they were able to convert several opportunities. So hopefully they can get that off of condensed scouting now going forward, because you only get a week now preparing for opponents. But I'm optimistic going forward. Lou Anarumo, very impressive defensive coach, and he really showed it on Sunday.
He did, and I'm very intrigued to kind of see, because like the other thing that's impressive about it, like Tua's not a rookie. Like he's been around, he's seen a lot. And this next week they're going to play a Broncos team and a guy in Bo Nix who didn't look great against the Titans. It is Sean Payton, so yeah. I'm sure that they'll clean it up. But I can't believe I'm gonna ask this question. It feels so weird talking about the Colts and asking this question. How excited are you to see how the Colts defense goes about trying to confuse Bo Nix?
Yeah, I'm pumped. I mean, we even saw last year under Gus Bradley that the Colts defense had some success against this Broncos offense. And I'm sure like the players who were carrying over from last season are kind of thinking that going into this week. Like, you're not going to be complacent, but it's like, hey, we held this offense in check for most of that game last year and forced Nix to throw 3 interceptions, I think, in that game.
Sounds right.
So we can do this again. If we can just, especially with Lou Anarumo now drawing up what he's going to draw up. So I think there's confidence from this defense coming to this game. I think that the whole squad is playing well. The biggest thing really is if Charvarius Ward's going to play. That's going to be the massive development of this week, because if he does play, I'm feeling really good about their chances to hold back this Broncos offense. If he doesn't play, then we're looking at Blackman and or Jonathan Edwards playing a good amount of snaps, and that might be a little dicey for this Colts defense. I love both those players, but that could be a little bit dicey this early on. But overall, yeah, man, I'm kind of excited just to see what they have in store for this Broncos team, especially when, again, this Broncos offense I don't think is bad by any means, but when you compare it to like the Dolphins offense has a lot more playmakers, from Achane to Hill to Waddle. Like, those are some scary offensive threats. The Broncos have Sutton and Mims and I guess Dobbins and Harvey, I guess, like solid players. Like, they're not terrible players, but it certainly feels like a step back from what the Dolphins had. So you're hoping to kind of carry the success to week 2 and give your offense a chance to score against that very tough Broncos defense.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun. I can't wait. Like last year, it never felt like there was a ton of excitement to watch the Colts last year. Whereas, it's really interesting. Like we came into the season and everyone's kind of down because Richardson lost the job. And then after week 1, everyone's back up. Like, let's go.
Oh yeah.
Zach Hicks, a Locked On Colts, joining me right now. Last thing, and I will let you go. I think my one question for the Colts after the Dolphins game is, I still have questions about the run defense because the Dolphins only ran the ball 12 times. What is the one question you still have about the Colts, whether it's on offense or defense, going into week 2?
Yeah, I think my biggest question is still like how sustainable is how sustainable is Daniel Jones delivering on those big moments? Like I said at the top of the show, because that's going to be the difference between this team being 10, 11, maybe, I can't go 12, but like 10 or 11 wins this year and competing for the division title, or being like a fringe wild card team that has to like just inch his way into the playoffs. Because if he can do that more often than not, like he did in week 1, this Colts team is going to be a playoff team. And especially with the offensive line playing the way they did, like if the offensive line plays this way, he might not need to do anything and they'll be a playoff team, because you can win so many games with offensive line performance like that. So I think I'm really curious to see how sustainable Daniel Jones is in terms of just delivering on those big plays. And then on defense, like you mentioned, kind of the run defense, just shoring things up. I know that Devon Achane is like, look, if you give every running back in the NFL 20 carries and guarantee them health, I would probably put Achane as a top 5 runner in football. It's just how he's not really sustainable with it, with his size and everything. But he's just so fast, so athletic, and so explosive that it is tough to contain him. You kind of just have to bottle him up instead of, trying to fully stop him. So I'm curious to see what that looks like in this week 2 game where, Harvey's pretty athletic as well, so you have to watch out for him. But, Dobbins is more of a get you 3, 4, 5 yards at a time at best type of runner. So can they hold them like under 4 yards to carry and hit that metric that all defenses want to hit? So run defense, I'm not completely nervous on yet. I want to see it against a different run offense first, and then we'll see how nervous I am after week 2.
Okay, sounds good. Zach, thanks for your time, man. Looking forward to next week. It'll be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's just as positive next week.
Something tells me that it won't be. The Broncos are just a little bit better than Miami. But hey, as long as they win, I do not care. If it's pretty or not, just go win, man. Thanks for your time.
Yep, see you, bud.
That is Zach Hicks. You can check him out on X at Zach Hicks 2. Make sure you check out the Locked On Colts podcast. Zach writes as well. I think he's also got a little YouTube thing going on too. So go find that and check that out. When we come back, Colts question marks. There were a lot of them. Some of them were answered. We'll talk about them in 4 minutes.
It may, one day, be a must-listen for sports enthusiasts.
Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt.
Uh-oh. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Tickets. Indy Sports Ticket over on YouTube. If you want to head over and subscribe, you can also watch on X __ Jonathan Smith. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app or 1430 AM. Just rocking and rolling here after an awesome Colts win. And the reason why they won that way is because a lot of the questions that people had about the Colts coming into the season were answered in a very positive way. You know, like there were questions like what is the depth at corner going to look like, especially after all of the injuries had piled up? What are the linebackers going to look like? Famously deemed the We Like Our Guys position group of the year, right? The backup defensive lineman, quarterback. What else was a question? Tanner Bortolini, Matt Goncalves, how would they look kind of being thrusted into these bigger roles? And every position group or player that had a question mark hovering above his head played really well. Like the linebackers, Joe Bacci and Zaire Franklin, like they made tackles. They were in the right spot. They didn't get exposed in coverage. Tanner Bortolini, Zach Hicks just said it, awesome in the run game. Matt Goncalves, in the words of Zach Hicks, was the Colts' best pass blocker on Sunday. Daniel Jones made every right decision. Xavier Howard, who the Colts brought in off the streets like a month ago, played better than Travarius Ward did. Like Tua didn't throw the ball his way once. That's how good he was. And it was just a very impressive all-around performance from the Colts. And it's really hard not to like what they're bringing to the table going forward, especially against a Broncos team that really struggled on Sunday against the Titans. Now, the Titans aren't bad. All right. Well, they might be, but their pass defense at a minimum is good, right? Between L'Jarius Sneed on one side and Jeffrey Simmons does a good job of getting after the passer. So they've got some talent on defense, and the Broncos offense really struggled in that game. Now, the Broncos defense ate Cam Ward alive, but that's not the most surprising thing in the world. Yeah, like that Broncos defense is nasty. So Colts off to a really good start. We're going to learn a lot more about them this upcoming week when they play host to the Denver Broncos, who are going to look to play a lot better after that rough week 1 game against the Tennessee Titans. And in order for the Colts to win that game, all of these question marks that we had about them before the year started have to continue to be yeses in terms of, can these guys play to the level required? Like Joe Bacci and Zaire Franklin have to continue to be really good at those linebacker slots. Like they have to continue to tackle really well. Guys like Abukum and Tyquan Lewis coming in off the bench, like they're going to have to continue to generate pressure the way that they did in those backup roles on Sunday. Daniel Jones is going to have to continue to make the proper decision every time he drops back. Xavier Howard's going to have to continue to be a really good player, especially if Travarius Ward isn't going to play, which is very possible given the fact that he's currently in concussion protocol right now. So all of those questions about the Colts have to continue to be positive answers going forward for them to continue to have success. Okay. Now look, they're not going to beat everyone 33-8, but they're going to give themselves a chance if all those question marks can continue to be yeses going forward. When we come back here in about 3 minutes, Tyler Warren, man, what a stud. That dude's so freaking good at football. He's making plays over the middle of the field. He had like 6 receptions for 73 yards. Just he's going to be such an important piece for the Colts. But there's one thing in particular that he has to do this year to kind of elevate the rest of the Colts offense. I'll tell you what that is in 3 minutes.
The best takes. Maybe. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in. Whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on X__Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. Maybe you're listening on the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. And of course, 14:30 a.m. if you're cruising around the Indianapolis area on a very beautiful day. Go play golf. Go do something outside today. It is just way too nice to stay indoors. And Tyler Warren's way too good at football for him to have been passed on for Colston Loveland. Like, Chicago Bears, thank you so much for allowing the best tight end in the draft to fall to 14. Tyler Warren, he's Mr. Do-It-All, man. So last year, the tight end that everyone fell in love with was Raiders tight end Brock Bowers. Big year, like led all tight ends in receptions and receiving yards and all those things. On Sunday against the Patriots, Brock Bowers only played on 33 of the Raiders' 66 offensive snaps. On those 33 snaps that Brock Bowers was on the field, Chip Kelly called a drop back pass on 84% of them. Fellow tight end Michael Mayer played more than Brock Bowers, right? Played 65% of the time on offense. And when he was on the field, it was split. Okay. The Raiders threw the football 54% of the time, and they ran it 46% of the time. So when Brock Bowers is in the game, it's pretty obvious what the Raiders are going to do, right? They are going to throw the football because that dude can't block. I was texting with Max Toscano, who's going to join the show tomorrow. And, he coached football at UConn, he writes now. And, one of the things that he writes about are guys who play the tight end position. So his thing to watch for Colston Loveland last night was essentially how well does he block, and do the Bears use Cole Kmet to try to cover some of Colston Loveland's issues blocking. And so I wanted to go back and look at Tyler Warren and kind of see how he fared in the run game. Because look, like the dude's going to catch passes. He's going to make plays after the catch. The dude's a stud. So I went back, rewatched the game. Tyler Warren can block, man. No other way around it. That dude can flat out block. Here's Colts head coach Shane Steichen talking about Tyler Warren and his ability to run block.
Yeah, I thought he did a really nice job. We had a play there. I want to say, I don't know if it was third quarter, where he got up inside on the linebacker, which created a little crease there. I thought he did some good things. We had some max play action protection stuff that I thought he held up good. I thought he did a real nice job, week one for sure.
Shane Steichen right there being very complimentary of his favorite player. And I say that, with a decent amount of confidence. Like, if you listen to any Shane Steichen press conference, he is so boring and so monotone. Like the dude doesn't say anything. There's no, like, his voice never changes. It's really pretty funny, honestly, if whenever you listen to him. And for him, all of a sudden, whenever he's asked a question about Tyler Warren, his entire, like, he smiles a little bit. He gets this little, like, cheeky grin on his face, and he's like, "Oh, here we go. I get to talk about my guy, my 14th overall pick in Tyler Warren." And he talks about him, and he just it's always positive. After the game on Sunday, he called him an old school baller. Like, all right, I like that. And it's not just because of his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield, right? As important as that is, and as important as that's going to be for the Colts this year, it's not only about that. It's the fact that Tyler Warren can also put his hand in the dirt and block, and it doesn't give away what you're going to do. I was talking about Brock Bowers and how whenever he's in the game, the opposing team knows that the Raiders are throwing the football. Tyler Warren and his ability to run block, it is more important than his ability to catch passes for that reason. Like, you don't want to tip your hand based on the personnel that you have in the game. And in order for that to happen with your tight end, it's got to be a guy who can run block and catch passes. Okay? And so, look, Tyler Warren, he doesn't have to be some dominant run blocker. He just has to be feasible. Like, can he just be okay? And the longer he's in the NFL, I think the better he'll be at blocking. But it is a very encouraging thing to see Tyler Warren come out week 1 against the Miami Dolphins and kind of have his way blocking. Okay? And I thought he held up well, and that's hopefully going to continue throughout the season. And staying kind of on Tyler Warren here, I think that we saw a lot of peaks from the Colts on Sunday. I'd be surprised if Daniel Jones has a better game than what he had. I would be, and it's probably going to make some people upset. Like, why are you being so negative? I'm not. That's just the truth. It just is. It's going to be tough for the Colts secondary to play much better than what they did against that Dolphins passing attack. But for Tyler Warren, I mean, the dude has another level. Like, you can just tell. Like they come out on that first drive and he catches 3 balls, and he only has three receptions from that point going forward. Or excuse me, four more receptions from that point going forward. 7 receptions for 76 yards on the day. And I think as the year goes on, we're going to see him get featured a little bit more in the red zone. I didn't feel like they featured him a ton. Like, I don't think he had any targets while in the red zone, which is surprising because usually part of why teams want to go out and get a tight end who can catch the footballs because they're big dudes who can make contested catches, and like that just makes it a little bit easier to throw the ball across the goal line. So I do think that we're going to see a little bit more from him in the red zone going forward. Probably going to see it this week against a really tough Broncos team that's really good at safety and linebacker. Like, if they're playing man, it's going to be very interesting to see how Tyler Warren does when he's defended by a guy like Dre Greenlaw. Really good coverage linebacker. How does he do when Tommy Hufanga comes down to try to defend him man to man? Like, how does he do in those spots? I'm very intrigued to see. Like, we learned one thing about the Colts on Sunday. They do not suck. Everyone who thought that they were going to go like 5-12, that's not going to happen. Okay? Now, are they going to win 8-9 games? I don't know about that either. I think we're going to get a decent answer to that question this upcoming Sunday because the Broncos do a lot of the things that the Colts struggle with. Like, they're probably going to run the football more than 12 times. And we're going to find out whether or not this Colts defense can slow down the run. Okay? Seems like they're going to be able to slow down the pass whenever they're healthy between Howard and Cross and Ward and Bynum. But how do they fare against the run? We're hopefully going to get an answer to that question. Can Daniel Jones continue to be consistent and continue to make the right decision over the course of a game? So Sunday, 4:00, it's a big day. I'm so excited to watch them play. I didn't feel like this last year. So the Colts might be good. I hope they are. I really do hope that they are. But something that is undoubtedly good is the Dan Dockett Show. Big day today. 2 great guests. Don't want to spoil them for you. One at 1:30, one at 2:30. It's going to be a great show. So don't touch that dial. Stay right here for the Dan Dockett Show coming your way next here on Indy Sports Ticket. I'll be back on the air tomorrow from 10 to noon. Max Toscano is set to join me. You're not going to want to miss it.